So welcome back. Let's get back right into continuing our design. So basically what we've done was we've done these 3 pages for the registration and login inputs, and now we are going to focus on the remaining pages. Okay, basically we have a lot of options here and we have the icons and etc, but what I would like to focus on is this navigation bar right here. Basically we already have done this navigation bar, so what we can do is just use it in the design system. Okay, so what I'm going to do is copy this bar with the background, or with this rectangle in the background, to the design system, and I'm going to create the component from this one. So basically we have the component. I'm going to name it navigation bar or nav bar, and basically what I'm going to do is change these icons, select them all, and change the color to, let's say, something like gray 3, for example. Okay, let me just check the color. This one can be maybe the black one, even this one can be the white. But let me go back and see. What we can do is not even have the black one, we can have maybe that gray one. So what we can do is maybe change this one to the gray, let's see, maybe gray 6 is fine for us. Maybe gray 6 is totally fine. So let's just put it there. And let's duplicate this home page. I will remove all of those things except the home indicator status bar. Let me remove the send, heart and message as well. And basically now what we are going to do is use another logo on our application. So what I'm going to do is use the socialgram. What we can do is change the color to the white, but first what we want to create is this upper section. So what I'm going to do probably is to create the auto layout between socialgram logo and the chat icon. So I'm going to scale it down a little. For example, in this case it's 28 height. So I'm going to click K on keyboard and type 28. And I'm going to add our icon. So basically what we can do is just duplicate it. In this case, we don't see anything properly, but just wait for that. And what I'm going to do is select those 2 items, Shift A, and basically what we can do is create the distance between those elements, or maybe just create the width of 361. So let's change that to the fixed. Oops. Okay, and let's place them in the middle. And now we have proper distance between those elements. What we also need is this ellipse and the text down below. So I'm going to duplicate these 2 elements. Let's see, the color for this one could be, for example, gray 4, or even something lighter, maybe gray 3. And for the ellipse we are going to add our faces with the plugin that I'm going to show you. But first just we want to arrange those stuff around. So I will hold Shift A and see the distance between those elements. So here it's 5. What we can do is maybe change it to the 8. And now just duplicate it through the interface. So just duplicate maybe, for example, few of them. In this case it's like a 7. Select all of those, Shift A. And let's change the distance between them to maybe 12. Okay, that's totally fine. And what we need is to have these 2 elements, Shift A. And also let's use the clip content option and just hold the control and place it within the width of 361. And this one is now sticking out, so that's maybe the biggest problem that we have here. So let's just first arrange it properly on the background. And what we can do is create the fill option for maybe gray 6, change this socialgram to white, okay, and change the distance between them to the auto. So now we have something else. So basically there was error within this icon right here on my side, and I needed to restart the program. So now what I did is change this color to the white as well. This one is white as well. And what I did is basically changed this to the fill, and also this is hug option. And I've changed the horizontal padding to 16. Why 16? Because we need the distance between margins or the sides of the frame of our device. And the next thing what we need is to have the distance from the top. So let's say it's going to be a 76, and from the bottom it can be 28. So let's place it like that and place the status bar on the top. Okay, so basically we have it on the top, and now we have our background properly done. Also for the navigation bar, what we can do is just duplicate it. Okay, and now we can see we have our design properly done. Next thing what we need is to have this post created. So what we can do is just to copy already done elements. Let's duplicate everything. And we are now going to set up everything properly. So Shift A for these two items, select the distance between them to be 8, and Shift A within those two items. For example, what we can do now is to create a fixed width with 361 and auto distance between those elements. So depending on, no matter how much we increase the width of this left element or the right element, everything is going to stay in the exact same place. And here we have the footnote, and the fill can be maybe black for the text, as we usually do for any other. And what we also need is to change these three elements to, for example, 16 distance. Maybe something like that can work. And now let's select all of those three elements. Okay, let's see, the distance, the width is 361 by 242, for example. I would say the distance between the elements could be 12 maybe. Let's see, 12 is fine. And now we will leave this picture as it is for now. Or what you can do is find some picture from the Google, or just click on this picture, go to the plugins, and type Unsplash. And now when it's opened, what we can do is just insert the no copyright picture on there. So basically anything that you like, you can just implement it within the project. So basically what we can do is just create or add these flowers to the picture. We just need to wait for it to load. In this case, I've chosen other picture because this one isn't loaded properly. But yeah, we have a picture right here. It's some gradient or it's some grainy picture or some kind of low resolution, but it doesn't really matter too much. What we need is just now a proper distance between the elements. So it's 16 by 16 on the sides. And from the top as well, we can do, for example, 16. And what we can do is just duplicate this post and send it to the back. The other thing what we can do to create this page more appealing is to select all of those Eclipse elements. In this case, we have all of those Eclipse items, even those one. Oops. Holding Shift and Command, we can select even those. And when we go to our plugins, we have a user profile avatar plugin. You can just search it. And what you can do is just randomly add some non-copyright photos. So literally I will just click insert random photo, and it's going to fill out every single picture with random photos. And now we have everything set and done within those things on the code page. Let's now focus on the chat. So basically what we can do is just duplicate those items. And now, as we are seeing, we have usually some duplication during our interface. It's that we have a profile picture, name, surname, and something below that, okay? So what we can do is create this profile icon with a name and surname and some description or username in this case. We can create it in the design system and use it throughout the interface. And basically, whenever we want to change it, we can just go to design system and change the colors or distance, anything, and it's going to change through our interface, okay? So now what we are going to do is change the background first. So let's change the background to the gray 6. And now what we can do is remove all of those remaining elements except home indicator. We will just leave this one, okay? So basically what we done is just frame them all, but I will ungroup that and now focus mostly on just creating the proper design system. Shift A within those two elements, set the distance, maybe, let's see, the 4. 4 is totally fine. Let's set the distance between those two elements to 12. And let's shift A these elements, for example, to the auto. It's going to be fixed 361. And what we can do is just add some picture for the user profile. Okay. So basically we can have this picture, or we can undo that and add it into our design system and just change it later with something that we like. But first let me just check the colors. Okay, we have this one is just normal gray, and let's cut this into our design system, even though we cannot see it properly. I think it's much better to change the fill just to something else, something light, just so we can see the text behind. And let's create a component. For example, it can be user detail, for example, or something like that, depending on what you want from the application. And now we can reuse that asset throughout our interface. I will just duplicate it, okay, and select all user and set the distance between them 16. Let's select these two as well and set the distance, for example, 32. Okay, and the distance between that is 24. Distance between the top layer is 78. In this case, what we have is I think it's 76 and 22 distance. So maybe what we can do is not have 76. Let's see, it's divided by 14. In this case, 78, I think isn't, yeah, it's 90 by 8. So what we can do is just change it, move it slightly up to 76, okay? So it all depends on the distance between some elements. I'm just trying to make most of my designs divided by 4, but that's mostly done in the websites because there is like 4-point grids that you are going to use. On the mobile applications, we can try to use those 4-point grids, but it doesn't work most of the time, unfortunately. But we are trying our best to create something proper. Okay, now I will just select all of those items Let me try and see, is there something that I missed? Maybe not, maybe yes. But what we can also do is go to the user profile and just insert the random photos within those circles or eclipse. Okay, and what we can do now is create our chat. So I'm moving that on the side, and now we have so many elements to change. So basically nothing is worth it to stay, even those 3 frames. So basically we just need a status bar, home indicator, and that's all. What we can do is just create a few messages and then add these layers, this whole rectangle, this top section, and this messaging section on the bottom. Okay, so basically what we can do is duplicate these elements just to have the text that we can copy. Okay, and now we have something to work. Let's say this message says hello. Okay, so we have this text message, and this one is going to be exactly the same. But what we can do in this case is click Shift A, and now we have our auto layout option. This can be auto, it doesn't really matter. This should be in the center. And let's change the distance between sides. It's going to be, let's see, for example, 12, and let's set this to the hug components, and height could be, for example, 8. Okay, and let's fill out the text. So basically we can see maybe the primary with the white. It does look like iMessages on the iOS, but we are going to stick maybe with this kind of color. Or maybe we can try something else just to see how it's going to look like. Maybe this one as well. It's all depends on you, so choose whatever you will like the most. Maybe I'm not going to choose the 8, for example, 12 would be good, and 16 for the sides. And let's change the component corner radius to the 8. Okay. And also what you can do is go to this icon right here and change corner radius maybe to 0 on the top bar, for example. That can also look great. Or even what you can do is change these, all of those, maybe to 99. And what you can do is change this one to the 0. Or maybe not to the 0, but something a little bit different. Or even you can change this to the 0, and for example, let's set this one to the 8, for example. Let's see how this is going to look like. For example, something like this can also work, but I don't like too much of these kinds of looks. So basically I just like to stay with 8 and maybe 0 on the corners. So we are going to have this message there, and we are going to have a responding message with a 0 corner radius on that side, 8 on that side. Message says, for example, says hello back or something like that, and change this color to something else, for example, some gray color. Let me try and see what can work best in this case. Or even yeah, I think gray can work. Even this gray color is totally nice, gray one with a black. I'm just checking out the options that we can use. For example, gray one is also nice option, so we can stick with that one, and we just need the time for these two messages. Okay, Shift A and select maybe even 4 distance between them. Shift A and select the 4. Okay, now we are going to set those two messages to the fixed width of 361. And now we have a problem that's going to be that one message doesn't stick on that side. But basically what you can do is select fill radius, and now we have this filled up. So basically we have our content aligning to the top left, and our other message is going to be aligned on the top right. And the distance between those messages could be, for example, 12 is totally fine. And what we can do is just duplicate those messages, but maybe in this case like this, for example, and select all of those frames, Shift A, maybe 12. Let's duplicate it even more. It doesn't really matter because we are going to stick it on the back side like this. Okay, and now what we need is this status bar on the top and this messaging option on the bottom. So basically what we are going to do is have these elements duplicated. Let's duplicate them on the side and now work around them. Even though we cannot see it properly, we can Shift A those, maybe 4, Shift A, oops. Let's see these two elements, Shift A. I don't know why it's working kind of strangely. Let me just see it. Okay, we have our frame and the eclipse. Shift A, now it's selected properly. Let's set the 8, and now let's select the distance, maybe 12 is totally fine. Let's fill out this eclipse to something else. Okay. And we are not going to place it like this, for example. What you can do is create something different within that frame. For example, in this case, we have 393 by 130 frame. But what we can do in this case is we already have the auto layout option, so we can just use the fixed grid of, for example, 393, I think it's the width of the phone. Select the horizontal padding to 16, and maybe top and bottom padding could be a little bit different. For example, it could be 64 by 20, for example, and fill it out with a white. Okay, and we can just place it inside our chat, maybe on the top. Okay, and we have our status bar, so we can just bring it on the front. And what we can also do is other stroke, maybe to let's see, for example, gray 1 is totally fine. Let me just check the gray 2 option. Yeah, let's stick with the gray 1, and let's just put it on the bottom. Okay, so basically we have the chat that's going behind this whole section on the top. And what we can also do is change this maybe from the captions to the body. I think it's much better. And change the colors to maybe black even for this top section. What you can always do is just select all of those elements and select the color selection and just check around and see maybe what's changed, what's not. So for example, in this case, we have the lower opacity. Let's see what's that. It's our clocks. So what we can do is just change it to something else. For example, gray 4 or gray 3. Okay. So now we have that ready and done. What we need is this type message on the bottom. So basically what we are going to do is create this rectangle first with the type message and the icon on the side. We are now seeing that in our assets, when we go to the local components, we are going to see the input, and we have the different option. it's the search bar. But what we can do is add another variant and just change the distance between those elements kind of differently and to position them differently. So we can go into our design system and let's move these elements away and add another variant. Okay, and let's move this search to the left by our arrow keys, and let's select the distance between them to the auto. So it's going to fill out the auto, and within this input bar we can place something else. For example, in this case it's going to be a sand icon. So let's see if there's like a sand. Okay, and we can just place it there, remove this one, and we can even change the size of that to 20. Even that can work. And let's change maybe that to the black or something else. Okay, and let's, for example, type here, type message. And when we go to our wireframes, we are now going to see the input, and we can select variant 3. It's going to be to type some message, as we are having right here. What we can do is add the auto layout option to create it around this area. So basically Shift A, create a fixed width of 393, select it in the middle, and let's change the fixed width to something else. For example, it's going to be a distance on the top and the bottom differently. So let's set it, for example, 24. Oops. And let's set the top maybe to the 24 as well. Oh, I'm just checking up and seeing what can work, what can doesn't. So I will place it on the bottom, and now I'm going to check up with the home indicator as well. I'm going to bring it to the front. And now, as I'm seeing, it's kind of touching it on the bottom, so we can change the distance on the bottom padding to maybe 36 even. Yeah, that can work. And add our stroke with a gray one. Oops. Gray one only to the top. Okay. So basically now we can have the messages scroll. But these two elements are going to stay exactly the same. So that should be for our video within the homepage and the chats. In the next video, we are going to focus on the rest of the screens.